What's up, sons? It's Blind Rod with Son of a Tech once again, and welcome to another video. It's been almost a week since we did a pre-recorded video. Today we're going to take a look at a game called The Strange Brigade, which is by a studio called Rebellion, who also did other titles like Sniper Elite. A few other smaller titles as well they've done, and they always are pretty fun, entertaining games, including, of course, Nazi Zombie Elite, I think it's called. That whole series is fun as hell as well, which is basically just based off of the Sniper Elite engine and kind of rolled out from there. That aside, this particular game is a 4-player co-op along the lines of something like God mode or RIFD. So basically you're going to be able to join up with 3 other friends, hop in and go through basically a loot grind set in the 1930s. It's a pretty fun game. It has, of course, a built-in benchmark mode that we can take a look at, which is also awesome. And we're going to be using that to test the frame rates and compare the GTX 1063GB to the RX 574GB at 1080p. So without further ado, let's hop into it. Welcome back. So to start things off, the test bench is an ASRock Z370 SLI AC. It's one that, you know, we've been running for a while now. We also have the i3 8350K overclocked to 4.8 gigahertz, and we didn't have any throttling, but so you guys stop bitching. So we do have an 8700K that we're going to throw in there when we get the RTX 2080 in. As always, if you guys have a problem with my benchmarks, you can come watch live and check everything out. You'll also be able to see things like the CPU percentage usage, and you can always check that up in the corner on those live streams, and you'll see that the 8350K doesn't really bottleneck the GPUs all that much. It's pretty impressive. Actually, in some cases, I have also seen it starting to beat, of course, the 7700K and the 6700K, thanks to basically a little bit more of a tweak on its performance or architecture for hitting those higher clocks. And that's pretty awesome. I'm pretty impressed with that CPU, but to make sure, you know, we're good to go with the 1080 Ti RTX 2080 tests that we're going to be doing here in a week or two, I picked that up. We have 16 gigabytes of Dominator Platinum clocked at 3200 megahertz and SSD for the storage, and that's going to be basically for the OS. And then we have a regular 7200 RPM drive from Seagate for all the games, and I've always done that for more of the budget stuff. Obviously, when testing games, I guess people want to not have the budget stuff, which, okay, I mean, I guess the GTX 1080 Ti is in the top whatever 25 of people using it on Steam, but I mean, number one is GTX 1060. So that's a pretty important one to take a look at. All that aside, doesn't really matter. Right now, we are running the games off of the hard drive. In the future, well, look forward to a test bench refresh, essentially. We also have that all powered by a Corsair CX750M, and it's, you know, in a case and stuff. So finally, the 2 cards that we're playing with here is going to be the MSI GTX 1063GB Aero. You can see a full review on this channel somewhere. And we are also testing the XFX RX 574GB. It is not the black edition, it's the XXX edition. I always get them so confused, but it's the one that's not overclocked to 1328 out of the box. However, it'll go there pretty easy. For this test, or these tests, we didn't overclock either one of the cards, which actually gives it a performance advantage to the green team because they have that GPU boost. It's like XFR for graphics cards, except, you know, not from AMD. That being said, we have the benchmarks right here. So if you take a look at it at 1080p, low settings, and that's usually what I do the base run on, we had the GTX 1063GB with a minimum, and that's a hard 0.1% minimum, of 121 with an average of 142. The RX 574GB, on the other hand, fell a little short at 115.8.1% min and 144 average. Now, talking about this a little bit more, it's interesting. 2 things are interesting in this test. Basically, you can go with either card and you're going to be happy, in my humble opinion. You're not going to see too much of a difference. If you grab the RX 570, just overclock it to like 1400. Almost all of them hit 1400. 1375 to be conservative. it's going to catch up to the GTX 1063 gigabyte, which is, you know, for the price at this point, those RX 574 gigs are coming down, down, down. I think I paid $189 for this one. And the GTX 1063 gigabytes are still kind of floating up high, of course, unless you can get a used one from a miner like myself or something like that. Or you can try to win one up in the corner or down in the description. I'll put it in the description. We're giving away a GTX 1063 gigabyte and 8 GT 1030s, or 7 GT 1030s, excuse me. 8 graphics cards totaling in close to $1,000 in prizes. Go check that out and make sure you get entered for that as well. Okay, so now that we've talked about the fact that if we went ahead and overclocked the RX 570, it's probably going to be right in line with the GTX 1063 gigabyte. We should also point out that at stock, if we went up to the 4K, we saw the RX 574 gigabyte take a lead. Now, both the cards perform over 30 FPS at 4K, but there was some kind of issues. It wasn't super smooth. There was a variance in the frame timing, which made it a little bit not fun to play. But if you locked VSync down to 30, it was fine. It's a shooter. If you're on these, drop the resolution down to 1440p or 1080p and get to 60 FPS, and you're going to have a much better experience, in my humble opinion, for this type of game. Now, if you guys are looking for performance improvements for, of course, the settings menu, we did that as usual, and we're going to throw that chart up right now. So taking a look at this chart, the setting that's going to affect the frame rate the most will be at the top, while the setting that won't affect it at all will be at the bottom. It actually has quite a few different settings that you can tweak and adjust that will affect performance. The best one, of course, the top one that's going to affect your frame rate the most is reflection detail, which will net you about an 11% change in frame rate. So let's say you were at around 55 FPS and you want to get to 60 FPS, this is something you just want to turn off and it should get you to 60. Now, if you were at 50 FPS and you're trying to get to 60, you're going to have to compound that with something. Here it looks like that would be something like shadow detail with a 10.4% change in FPS, or ambient occlusion with a 10.3% change in FPS. There's also draw distance, which will net you a 10% change in FPS, but draw distance is so important, and especially it's extra important in a shooter like this. So do everything else that you can to still have your draw distance turned all the way up. Now, anti-aliasing surprisingly only netted about a 3% change in FPS across the board. That's both for AMD and NVIDIA. So the way I typically do these charts, to give you guys an idea, is that I will test it on both an AMD card and, of course, a NVIDIA card, and then I'll just basically average them out for the change in FPS to get the best idea. Now, we do make notes if there are any settings that are proprietary to AMD or NVIDIA. In this case, we don't have that because, I mean, it's a well-optimized game from a studio that's had plenty of experience, of course, in the PC gaming genre or area, market. I don't know what you call it. They dev PC games all the time. So there you go. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below. You can find me on Twitter at SonOfATech, or find us on Discord with the link in the description below. Come chat about games, mining, PC modding, whatever you prefer. It's all about our hobbies after work. Until next time, I'll see you next Tuesday.